Hello everybody, and welcome back to another episode here from GuigLit, your one-stop shop for all things books, beards and beyond. Today we will be looking at the context to Charles Dickens' seminal novella, A Christmas Carol. But before we do that, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, be sure to share it with all your friends and loved ones, and hit that bell icon for more updates from the channel. If you haven't already, we are on other social media platforms including Twitter, Instagram and TikTok, where you'll find more hints, tips and help. So, in terms of the video, what can you do with it? As always, don't forget you can use this to take notes and ask a question in the comments. The GuigLit guarantee is I will reply to all of them, and I'm immensely grateful for all of the comments I receive. In addition, use it as a revision tool to help yourself practice in preparation for the exams, either by yourself or with classmates. You can also use this to help produce mind maps to help build your understanding of the text itself, and you can use it to help list examples from the book as you read along. Now, the author, let's begin with Charles Dickens himself. In order to really understand the true resonance of his most famous novella, we need to understand him too. So, we need to understand, first of all, that this novella was written at the peak of his fame. It was an immediate success. It was one that has lasted very much in the kind of contemporary mindset. But while it was an immediate success in its time, it was one of many Christmas stories Dickens wrote. It wasn't the only one by a long shot. Equally, his stories these Christmas stories often contain themes of redemption and the fate of mankind and how mankind treats one another. So it's very common kind of recurring theme among his Christmas stories that you see incorporated into A Christmas Carol itself. Also, he's born in Portsmouth but lived mainly in London, and in both instances he really experiences a sense of abject poverty. This poverty affects him particularly in his youth, and it's quite tellingly shown in the characters of the Cratchits in this particular novella. As well as this, we have to think about the society that Dickens lived in and the different things he would have witnessed that helped him and inspired him to write this story. So we know that entrenched poverty occurred in many corners of industrialised cities at this time. Where there was growth, there was also poverty, and this is quite plainly seen in the novella, particularly in the Cratchits, but also in this idea of ignorance and want in Stave 3. As well as this, there was no welfare state, so poverty as a consequence, there was no safety net for those in poverty, would lead to workhouses, ruination, and worse things as well. The class system this creates provides strict boundaries as well. We see this in the dynamics between Scrooge and Cratchit, and it's quite telling the way that Scrooge treats Cratchit in Stave 1. This leads to a thing called the Malthusian theory, as inspired and coined by the philosopher Thomas Malthus. So when Scrooge refers to this idea of surplus population in Stave 1, it comes back to this notion of Malthusian theory and how society's needs and population shouldn't be too stretched. It's a very kind of, in today's society, quite a very strict, punishing kind of theory of how society should be lived and how the poor should be treated, that Dickens uses in Scrooge's philosophy and worldview. Also, we want to think about Christmas itself. Okay, the way we celebrate Christmas isn't the same as how they did. So, the book was published in 1843. Now, the traditions and conventions around Christmas at the time were massively different. Many common elements, like trees, cards and presents, weren't commonplace if found at all. It's really telling to see how in Stave 3 with the Cratchits, there isn't a reference to presents as such. It's more about the community aspect. So Christmas Day wasn't always often a day off. It was more of a working class tradition. We see this in the quote Scrooge says in "You'll want all day tomorrow, I suppose," which is kind of reflecting the fact that the Cratchits would have, as a working class family, celebrated it by having a day off, but not everyone did. It wasn't like a traditional holiday at this point. It was really about the sense of community and togetherness, and we see Christmas most keenly seen in Stave 3 between the Cratchits, as well as the separate time with Fred. The spirit of the Bible is important here as well. It's very much a sense of Christian redemption and a tale of the beginning of Christianity and the birth of Christ in that regard. For example, we see the connection between Bob Cratchit and St. Christopher. The 5 staves, you'll notice the novella is written in 5 staves, not chapters. Well, a stave is a musical symbol and note to reflect a carol song, and like carol songs, there's an uplifting, redemptive quality to them Dickens deliberately uses. Here you see an example of the first Christmas card, and notice it's this idea of community and togetherness. No trees, there are no elements of presents as such, and we see the connection here in this commonly held picture of Bob Cratchit and the first picture of Tiny Tim where he holds his son carrying him home. I think this is really telling because there's a connection between this and the depiction of St. Christopher in the Bible and Jesus, the baby Jesus, St. Christopher, the patron saint of travellers, among other things, carrying Jesus across the flood. It's almost this idea of Tiny Tim's physical presentation here, reflecting him as almost Christ the Redeemer. We see that in the quote, "God bless us everyone," which is the final line of the novella, and we connect that to the way this image mirrors the image from the Bible. It's really telling of how Dickens wished us to kind of think and consider these two characters. So, thank you as always for tuning in, particularly to this particularly short video. Hope you enjoyed it. Please drop a comment. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe, as well as search GuigLit across all the social media platforms you see there. But as always, for now, all the best, take care, and bye-bye.